house in Baltimore to see the Panthers and the Ravens get it together. Last time we were down there was 8 years ago. Much has changed there. This guy's been anchoring things at WSOC TV down there in Charlotte for a number of years. You can find him out on Twitter at Phil Orban. That's Orban, WSOC 9, and his beautiful children in the beach. Dude, is that Nags Head down there? Is that a Carolina beach you're showing me?
No, you know what that is? That's Lewis, Delaware. My family's from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, so every summer we go to Lewis, visit some friends in Dewey to get away, get a babysitter every once in a while and have a little fun in Dewey, and you know how it is down there.
I know all about the Starboard. I know all about the bottle and cork, but I know nothing of what you're talking about here at all. Phil, a lot's changed down there, man. Like everybody I've talked to, it's been a lot more drama there than just Cam Newton and coming close to winning the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But the Caruth thing this week specifically really strikes home because, we're going back to the era where Ray Lewis had his jurisprudence issues here. I'm blown away that he's getting out of jail. I know in your market it's been the biggest story all week. It's sort of this OJ story that came back to life after 2 decades, right?
Yeah, and you know what's funny is this was all before my time, right? So I've been there about 5 years, and so I had to play catch up a lot for a lot of this stuff. Obviously I remember when it happened because it was such a big deal, but I hadn't been following the story for years and years and years, and honestly, what it's turned into is less about Ray and the murder and things like that, and it's really turned into this incredible story of survival from Sharika's son Chancellor, who's just this incredible story. And if you don't know the story, if you're not up with it, and you just like I said, you just know about kind of the murder for hire and kind of all the nasty stuff, really look into it. Because basically what happened is Sharika was murdered when she was 8 months pregnant. Her son, Chancellor Adams, lost, blood and oxygen and all that sort of stuff. They had an emergency C-section. He was, premature. He had some brain damage and things like that. And he's been taken in by his grandmother, Sandra, and raised. And he just had his 18th birthday. He does have some physical and mental disabilities, but it's an incredible story of kind of rehabilitation and hope. And I really hope that people get more from that story than out of just, how awful of a crime and what a terrible person Ray is, because it is kind of stunning that he got out of jail. It feels like it was so soon because it was such a horrific crime, but he's out. There's nothing we can do about it now. And I really think it's better for everybody to kind of focus on the positives that came out of the story and the survival and the kind of the hope angle of it, and that's really all I hope people get out of it.
Well, and so much has happened, right? The Jerry Richardson story from a journalist standpoint who works down there. Cam Newton is his own story, but there's been a lot of drama with the Carolina Panthers, and I think about the Ravens and the issues that we've had here and the championships we've won, and quite frankly, down there, they came a field goal short the first time, and Cam Newton short the second time, and we would have mirror franchises to some degree, but the Jerry Richardson thing, you got talking about a guy that has a statue out in front of the stadium. He's the reason they got the team. Quite frankly, I think anybody here that was around, and I was back in the 90s, that would tell you he's the reason we didn't get an expansion team in Baltimore that made their bid so strong in Charlotte back in the mid-90s to get the team. Now has left the franchise in this state of disgrace, over the last year with his treatment of women, and kind of a tawdry story for the South and for your television station and anyone on the media side last year, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's kind of what's been so hard for a lot of people who do love the Panthers and do understand everything that Jerry Richardson did for the franchise, bringing the NFL to the city of Charlotte, and really that coincided with a boom in the number of people moving to the city and kind of becoming this major city because, as you know, you're not a major city if you don't have an NFL franchise. So what Jerry Richardson did for the city can't be overstated. However, what he did since is just inexcusable and disgraceful and awful. Allegedly. And it's just, it's been hard for a lot of people to kind of process that. Now the people like me that weren't around back 25 years ago when he started kind of bringing everything to Charlotte are able to see it from a different lens. But yeah, it's been a wild, let's see, it's almost been a year now. Wow. So it's been a while, probably 11 months or so.
It felt like that story went away kind of quickly outside of Charlotte, and I think as we pointed out, we have a lousy owner here for our baseball team who certainly has been accused of a lot of things, but none of that, and wondering and suing his partners, wondering where the league comes in and a commissioner comes in and finds new ownership. Didn't take long there now, did it? Right, and the new guy is beer drinking and backslapping and doing all that stuff that sort of would make you forget about Mr. Richardson, wouldn't it?
Man, it's night and day. You can just tell, even just him being visible and around. I mean, he's on the field pregame, before every game. We never saw Jerry Richardson. Every once in a while, he'd come rolling out in his golf cart and not really talk to anybody besides the people that he needs to talk to. And it's just, it's as far as the story kind of disappearing, I think that was the whole point. I mean, the first thing Jerry Richardson did was, it seems like, and again, this is all, speculation on my part, but it seems like he was like, I was caught, I know I'm going to lose the franchise and I want to lose it on my terms. So right away, he said, I'm stepping down, I'm going to sell it. And he was able to sell on his terms, one of which, you mentioned the statue, is keeping that statue. That's one of the things that David Tepper was asked about right away when he came to Charlotte. What are you going to do with that statue? And for those that don't know, it's the wildest thing I've ever seen. It's Jerry Richardson flanked by two ferocious Panthers holding out this football, and it's at the main entrance of the stadium. So every single person that walks into that stadium from the north entrance, where most people go in, they're going to walk by that statue, and that says a lot to some of the alleged victims of the inappropriate behavior and things like that. And David Tepper was asked, hey, what's up with this statue? Are you going to get rid of it? Are you going to move it? What's going to happen? And he said, I have to leave it there. And that was it. And he's contractually obligated, and any buyer for that matter who wanted to buy the Panthers had to leave the statue there. And that's a very Jerry Richardson thing to do.
I'll tell you what, that's going to be part of the crazy story here. Phil Orban joining us here. We'll be down in Charlotte this weekend. And, of course, Luke's out in Owings Mills. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Compass Point. When the weather is good, you can still hit the dimpled little white ball. 36 beautiful holes down there in Pasadena and always close to home. Robert Kennedy's going to be doing some college basketball with us, and you can find him as well down at Compass Point. Also, King Discount Liquors, lottery beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. And I am recording a new ad that's going to feature pumpkin spice and eggnog when I get done with it. Go see Johnny Bev and the King All-Stars. I am fresh out of Malbec. I need to get out to King Discount Liquors and give the King a ring out on Pulaski Highway. I mentioned all of the drama about Richardson and the new owner and the Ray Caruth thing in your city right now. You're actually one of the franchises with a guy that kneels, right? And that has not been a story at all this year, the kneeling thing, has it?
Well, it wasn't a story until the Eagles game. So essentially, and again, going back to the ownership change, there is zero chance that Jerry Richardson would have been okay with signing Eric Reed. And everybody will tell you it's a football, all the Ron Rivera, our head coach, and Marty Herney, the general manager, they're all saying it's a football decision, but you can't tell me that they didn't go to David Tepper for final approval to sign Eric Reed, who is one of the better safeties in the league. The Panthers had a need. They went out and got him. Jerry Richardson would, again, this is just me speculating, but I'm fairly confident for a guy that wanted his players to stand and he just wanted to make, he wasn't as supportive as maybe some other ownership in the league. There's no way he would have been okay with signing Eric Reed. So the fact that he was brought in shows it's a different era. So Eric Reed comes in. He doesn't know if he says he's not going to. He doesn't know if he's going to kneel or not. And he kneels in that first game. And that wasn't a huge story. And everybody asked him about it, and he just said, of course, the racial injustice still persists, the police brutality. So I'm going to continue my protest during the national anthem by kneeling. And everybody was kind of fine with that. Now, it blew up a little bit last weekend when they were playing the Eagles because, and again, I would invite you to kind of dig into the story a little bit more because I'm afraid I'm not necessarily doing it justice, but essentially there's a players coalition headed by Malcolm Jenkins from the Eagles. They took money from the NFL, and one of those stipulations was kind of encouraging the protests to stop because the league would love these protests to stop and they would love everybody to stand during the national anthem. And Eric Reid was one of 4 players that kind of broke away. He was unhappy with how that deal was brokered and what the stipulations were in that deal. And he's continued to kneel, and he had some harsh words for Malcolm Jenkins, and that boiled over in the pregame, and that's what that altercation was about. And
well, again, I don't know that you can ever really have peace when you're blackballing another player, right? I mean, they're blackballing 100%. Kaepernick. That's where it's 100%. At. They can call it whatever they want to call it. They can couch it however they want, politically or legally or in the judicial system at this point, but they've blackballed the player in front of everyone.
And that was one of the things that ticked Eric off so much because he's obviously the first one that started protesting with Colin. They're incredibly tight. They're incredibly close. Obviously, they've both been through a lot. And to have Colin be denied a spot in the NFL is wrong. And Eric Reid was basically saying, we can't do anything. We can't agree to anything until Colin Kaepernick is on an NFL roster. And anybody that disagrees with that and says, well, he's not a backup, he's just a backup, he wants too much money, he wants this, he wants that, he's just doing this for attention. Like, look at the quality of quarterbacking in the bottom half of the league and in all the backups. And you can't, in good conscience, argue that Colin Kaepernick shouldn't be on a roster. I mean, it's not really an argument. I'm done having that argument.
Phil Orban is done having that argument. We're about to get on to the field. You can find him at Phil Orban. That's Orban WSOC 9 in Charlotte, and of course out on Twitter as well. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Pizza John's. I'm gonna get down there. It's been about 3 weeks since I've had a pepperoni pizza and a cheesesteak sub from Pizza John's. My mom's favorite pizza, my wife's favorite pizza. It's gonna be yours as well. For those of you in the know, you know how good it is. For those of you who've never been, make sure you get down there. 50 years they've been doing it. Down at Back River Neck Road in Essex. Stop by and tell them I sent you. And I'm going to get my Pizza John's beer mug out here this week now that it's Oktoberfest going on around here as well. Also brought to you by our friends at Lee Tessier, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks I trust with my real estate transactions with over 50 years of experience here in the community, helping local buyers and local sellers just like you. Right now I'm a seller. I'll be a buyer again. LeeTessier.com to learn more about all that they do out there. I got Phil Orban on the line down there in Charlotte. We're going to get to the actual game. I'm not a Cam Newton guy, bro. I'm outside of all of this, and I don't like the guys that run after they lose the Super Bowl and press conferences and the Superman and all of that stuff. I'm in the I like to root against Cam Newton in sort of that WWE sort of way. So, I'm always monitoring. This is the week, though, that we play Cam Newton, and I do respect this game. And obviously, coming back to win that game against the Eagles last week just tells you how dangerous he can be, right?
I mean, that was an unbelievable game because we're sitting up in the press box in Philadelphia, kind of writing the game story, and I'm Googling and trying to figure out when the last time the Panthers were shut out because they were just dreadful through 3 quarters. I mean, they couldn't do anything, and this is the same thing that happened the week before against Washington. They couldn't do anything early on, and then they mounted a comeback, and it came up just short. And after the game, after the Eagles game, Cam said that loss, he said, he admitted, to your point, he's not a very good loser, and you can't really fault him for that. He said, I'm not a very good loser, but that loss hit me particularly hard because I feel like I was the one that came up short and left my teammates down. And he said, if I ever have a shot to be in that position again, I'm going to do it differently. And as fate would have it, on the road, down 17 to an NFC East team, he gets another shot. He gets that exact same situation. They rally. They score a touchdown, make it 17-6, miss the extra point, just like the week before. They score another touchdown, get the 2-point conversion. Now they're down 3. Now he's got a game-winning touchdown drive with 2 minutes left. He drives them down, scores a touchdown, and that's it. And in that moment, you exercise the demons. You beat the defending Super Bowl champs. He has 133-something passer rating in the fourth quarter. And all those struggles in the first 3 quarters are forgotten because that's what Cam can do. And it was one of those kind of signature moments that you can look back at the end of the season and say, who knows what's going to happen the rest of the year, but this is potentially something you can look at and say, this is where they all kind of figured it out and put it all together.
Well, they had a better football team a couple of years ago. I'm trying to figure out where Kuechly is. Certainly, Julius Peppers coming in at senior citizen status, as well as the offense is built to run, though. And a lot of teams talk about that. We talked about that around here for 6 months. It's week 8. We don't run the ball. But they really do try to run the ball there, and finding yourself behind 17-0 2 times back-to-back on the road, it's easy to abandon the run when that happens.
So the thing about that is, they do want to run the ball, and they want to run it with Christian McCaffrey, but when they're not running the ball, he's able to do so much in the passing game, and the threat of what he can do in space affects defenses, as much as anything. And we have a guy that breaks down some film for us, and he said multiple times, you're not necessarily on defense taking a step physically to the right, but mentally you're leaning that way. If Christian McCaffrey is kind of steaming hard in motion, but steaming to the right, you're going to kind of shift there mentally, and that's how they scored their first touchdown. I mean, they ran this option look with Cam and Christian McCaffrey to the left, and Curtis Samuel hit a little reverse around the other side, and it was wide open. He scored a 14-yard touchdown. So even though they're not necessarily pounding the ball between the tackles down 17-0, they still have their starting running back in. They still have Christian McCaffrey in, and he can do some other things around the edge. He can do some things in the passing game that some running backs can't do that make him so dangerous, and you don't necessarily have to throw out your whole playbook just because you're down, and that's one of the advantages that kind of paid off last weekend.
Phil Orban is our guest. You can follow him out at WSOC9, as well as out on Twitter at Phil Orban, WSOC9. I would say who else matters on the team, but obviously with Kuechly on the other side of the ball, but the complementary players, where's Funchess at this point in the journey? And obviously we've shipped Torrey Smith down there via San Francisco, via Philadelphia now in Carolina, that taking the top off the defense is what he's known for doing, but Newton has not gone downfield much this year, has he?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that was one of the topics that was broached before the Eagles game, was kind of the lack of the downfield passing game, and Cam and Ron both got a little testy about that, because the whole point is you kind of take what the defense gives you, and what they were giving them was that the underneath stuff and the check downs, and again, the beauty of having a guy like Christian McCaffrey is you can throw it to him 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and let him make some things happen after the catch. DJ Moore, a Maryland guy, he's another guy like that. I mean, I forget the stat, but last week at least, the Panthers were one of the best yards after the catch teams in the NFL, and a lot of that has to do with a guy like Christian McCaffrey and a guy like DJ Moore, who's great with the ball in his hands and the ball in space. So they can do some things that necessarily you don't have to throw the ball 25 yards in the air to take the top off the defense, but they would certainly like to have that kind of in their back pocket. They would love to have Torrey Smith be able to get loose a little bit downfield. This has been a huge year for Devin Funchess, kind of a make-or-break year when they took Kelvin Benjamin out halfway through the season last year and traded him to Buffalo. They expected Devin Funchess to really step in and be their number one guy, and he hadn't up until 3 or 4 weeks ago when he's really kind of come on. He had a big catch against Washington 2 weeks ago, and he had that touchdown catch against the Eagles to pull him within 3. So they've been kind of pleased with what he's been doing recently, and hopefully that can kind of carry on.
Phil, always a pleasure to check in with you, man. We're looking forward to getting down there to. So I ask all my visitor folks. I'm coming down for 2 days. Give me one thing I need to do in Charlotte that I've never done in Charlotte, and I'm not a NASCAR fan. Let's start with that.
Whew. So not the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
What's the best thing I can do there? Is there some place I should eat, some place I should go, some place I haven't discovered on Google?
My favorite place is Midwood Smokehouse for a little barbecue.
Midwood Smokehouse. I'm writing. I'm taking notes, man. Trust me.
Midwood Smokehouse in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood. Get a little barbecue down there. A little
Carolina style. I like that. Carolina.
That's right.
Style. All right, man. Appreciate the time as always. Hope to see you down in Carolina when we get down there this weekend. Appreciate the preview.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
You got Phil Orban joining us here, WSOC9 out on Twitter, the way to find him. You can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.